Percy, the Small Engine, is the 11th book of the Railway series, and was first published in 1956. The book's illustrations are the last in the series to be painted by Clarence Reginald Dalby, who, after 8 years, had finally had enough of criticisms of his art by the author, Reverend Wilbert Awdry, specifically his depictions of steam engines. Being an avid train watcher, Dalby's fairly minor inaccuracies naturally frustrated the author, who famously described Percy as looking more like a caterpillar than a saddle-tank steam engine. All 4 of the book's 4 short stories were adapted into 4 short episodes of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. How faithful were these adaptations? Let's spot the differences. The first 3 stories were brought to model life during the television series' 2nd season in 1986. Percy loves being cheeky to the big tender engines. The first demonstration we are given of this is the small engine telling Gordon that he is late to pull his train. In the book, Gordon is inside the shed when Percy tells him this, making the big engine steam out as quick as he can puff, only to find dirty trucks, not shining coaches. In the episode, Gordon is already standing on the line, away from the sheds and next to some coaches. When Percy tells James to stay in the shed until the Fat Controller comes to talk to him, Gordon and Henry are also inside the shed. James is alone in the adaptation, and is not in the engine shed but in the building next to Tidmouth Sheds, sometimes described as the works, but mostly used for a place to park coaches, trucks, and the breakdown train. The inspector who comes to see why James won't move is wearing a trench coat and a trilby hat. In the adaptation, he wears the same blue uniform as Sodor's drivers, firemen, and guards. The narration states that after these pranks, Percy did his best to avoid Gordon and James, until one day when he was too excited about being allowed to leave the yard and take a train to Farquhar. This is why this scene's narration in the adaptation begins with,
"One morning Percy was careless.
The Fat Controller chose me specially. He must know I'm a really useful engine." "More likely he wants you out of the way,"
grunted James.
Gordon winks at James to signal he has thought of a plan to prank Percy. As the model could not move its eyelids, it is said and shown that Gordon simply looks at James to indicate he is formulating trickery. The joke of the episode that will make railway workers and enthusiasts chuckle, and non-railway savvy people bewildered, is that the function of a backing signal does not operate with the purpose of telling an engine and its crew that they need to reverse. Here is a bit of extra Percy dialogue not included into the episode.
"I am clever," thought Percy. "Even my driver doesn't know about backing signals."
When Gordon rushes past with his express, it is said that he saw Percy reverse, and so knows he and James succeeded in confusing the small engine. The illustration shows Percy is still going backwards as the big engine sweeps by, even though it is said Percy has stopped. It is unlikely Gordon would have been able to see Percy reversing down the line from such a distance away, especially as, once he put the brakes on, the driver explains why the signal pointed up, and then Gordon passes by. This moment would have worked better had Percy seen Gordon was coming and reversed deliberately to show he knew how backing signals work, proving he didn't.
Down means go, and up means stop. So upper still must mean go back. I know. It's one of those backing signals.
Percy tells Gordon and James that the Fat Controller has told him he has bought a new engine to help him with his shunting work. An illustration error depicts Percy with a smile on his face as he pulls coaches at the harbour. despite the narration stating he is still cross about getting his comeuppance in the previous story. This was corrected in the adaptation, however it did not add the narrator's explanation of why Percy felt so tired when he reached the station.
Things went wrong. The coaches and trucks behaved badly. And by the end of the afternoon, he felt tired and unhappy.
Sir Topham Hatt cheers Percy up by asking if he would like to work at the island's new harbour with Thomas once the new engine arrives. In the episode, the small engine has backed the coaches into the station, but in the illustration he has pulled them in and is facing the large safety barriers at the end of the line.
Hello, Percy. You look tired. Yes, sir. I am, sir. I don't know if I'm standing on my dome or my wheels. Oh, you look the right way up to me.
Laughed the Fat Controller.
When the Fat Controller and Percy meet Montague, whose nickname is Duck, they are standing between the sheds and the station. In the episode, the location is Knapford Yards. The next page takes place in the same location, whereas in the episode, the engines are at Knapford Station. The tender engines make quacking noises and blow steam at Duck. In the book, they also tell him to do things, but we get no further details regarding what exactly they order the Great Western Engine to do.
The Fat Controller had had a good day. There had been no grumbling passengers, all the trains had run to time, and Duck had worked well in the yard.
Just as he walks out of his office, he hears Gordon, Henry and James angrily wheeshing in the yard nearby. In the episode, he hears this noise from inside his office. It is said, and shown in the book, that Duck and Percy are blocking the tender engines from entering their shed by sitting on the points. Although this is also said in the adaptation, it is inaccurate, as the set of Tidmouth sheds was given a turntable, which it has never had in the Railway series' illustrations. Duck calmly requests that Sir Topham Hatt tells the big engines not to boss the smaller engines around, a concept that they do not approve of.
Silence!
Snapped the Fat Controller.
Gordon and Henry appear to be smirking while the Fat Controller shouts at them. Dalby should have given them faces of fear to indicate the authority Sir Topham Hatt has over them, as the narration says that they stopped sniggering when he turned to face them. The tender engines are not facing the camera during this moment in the episode.
Do they tell you to do things, Percy? Yes, they do. Right, we'll soon stop that nonsense.
Well done, Percy. The Fat Controller's very pleased with us.
Thomas does not appear at all in this story of the book, nor the previous two stories where he made cameos. Percy pushes some trucks full of stone to the quay for the workmen. A beach full of beachgoers can be seen in the distance. In the episode, we only get to see the yard, presumably near to the quay. The conversation between Percy and Harold the helicopter mirrors the one Thomas had with Terence the tractor. It is said Harold was offended by Percy's description of his propellers, and the expression on his face indicates this. Both the helicopter and the small green engine keep the same cheerful expressions during this scene, despite both irritating the other. Also, the reason Percy comes to a stop is because of a red signal opposite where Harold has landed. The red signal was replaced by a red windsock, making it seem Percy stops just because he wanted to chat to the chopper.
I think railways are slow. They're not much use, and quite out of date.
The location of where Percy finds Toby was changed from Farquhar Station to the quarry. The illustration shows Percy is pulling 7 trucks and a brake van. In the episode, he has only 4 trucks and a brake van. An amusing moment not included into the adaptation involves the guard in the brake van spilling his tea when Percy starts to go faster, as his race with Harold begins.
Well, I'll be ding-dong-dang.
It is the guard who says this in the original story, but this was changed to the driver, which comes across as a little odd, not just because they recycled a close-up shot of Henry's cab, but because it was the driver who told Percy to race the helicopter. So why would he seem surprised he is now doing so?
The fireman scrambled to the cab roof. "We've won! We've won!" he shouted.
An illustration error has the fireman standing on the ground next to Percy, looking to see if Harold has landed yet. This mistake by Dalby was fixed for the adaptation. It is said that the driver guard and the workmen at the quay catch the tune the fireman sings, meaning they start singing it too. In the episode, only the fireman, who was clean-shaven in the illustration, does the singing.
Said Harold Helicopter to our Percy, "You are slow. Your railway is out of date and not much use, you know." But Percy with his stone trucks did the trip in record time, and we beat that helicopter on our old branch line.
The fourth and final story of this book was adapted during Series 3 in 1991. The episode begins with 30 seconds worth of introductory world building, as Thomas arrives at a station by the seaside.
Every summer, the island of Sodor is very busy. Holidaymakers love to sightsee, and when the weather is fine, there is no better place to visit.
The original story starts straight away with the vicar and children from his Sunday school bursting out of Annie and Clarabelle and heading to the beach. Before the end of the first page, the weather changes drastically from hot and sunny to rain and thunder. In the adaptation, after making his promise, Percy is told about the approaching bad weather by Harold and Edward. The rain doesn't start until Percy buffers up to Annie and Clarabelle, but in the book it begins just as the vicar and children return to the station. Also, Percy has to be reminded to pull the train by the station master. The water in the valley has risen so high across the tracks that it enters Percy's cab and dampens out his fire. In the book, the small engine is reversed out of the flood. The guard goes to find a telephone and returns telling them their retreat is cut off as the bridge has collapsed. This doesn't happen in the episode. Although it isn't said, it could be the water put out Percy's fire, preventing him from moving out of the flood.
"I'll have some of your floorboards,"
said the fireman to the guard.
"I only swept it this morning."
The narration in the book refers to Clarabelle as the guard's van, which is the passenger-carrying coach's second function. This is presumably why David Mitton added a brake van to Percy's train in the adaptation, so the small engine's crew had something else to chop. Much like Bertie when he came to rescue Thomas's passengers from the snow, Harold doesn't say anything in the original story, other than... It is said in the book that Percy rested after crossing the flooded rails. In the adaptation, he keeps on puffing until he reaches the station. The vicar and children giving 3 cheers for Percy is replaced in the episode by Thomas congratulating his friend. The green caterpillar with red stripes is covered in mud after his exploits in the rain-soaked countryside. He appears clean as a whistle in Dalby's final Railway Series illustration.
"Harold told me you were a wizard, Percy. He says he can beat you at some things, but not at being a submarine."